For those wondering why this is a more Pokemon that fell off list, it's because we did the top 10 fall-offs a little over a year ago, and so I figured now would be a pretty good time to pick back up where we left off. This time, it's not going to be a top 10 as much as it's going to be a collection of honorable mentions. But these honorable mentions had fall-offs so grand that they deserved real segments. These Pokemon, like the ones before, fell off for a myriad of reasons. Either stuff got stronger and they couldn't keep up, a tool was removed from it that it needed, or sometimes a mix of both. Just saying their names doesn't do them justice. The rules of this list are simple. If a Pokemon was OU for like its whole life, and then just recently dropped to UU, that's not a true fall-off. It's still good, just power crept. Tyranitar's supposed falloff isn't as grand as, let's say, this mon for instance. Claydol was like pretty damn good in Gen 3 as a hazard removal option that could threaten explosion. Its Psychic threatened Gengar, it could Shadow Ball for Misdreavus, it could Rapid Spin against most other things, and its Earthquakes and Explosions hit for pretty good damage. Refresh let it shrug off Toxics, and being Sand Immune in Tyranitar's world, or Blissey's if you're ABR, was amazing. It had enough depth to its game to keep one guessing as to what it was gonna run. Now, what happened to it? Not only did Roost get introduced, which made Skarmory, the thing it was supposed to spin against, even better. But U-Turn also started existing, which meant things could just start pivoting against it for super effective damage. The Psychic type as a whole is one big falloff. It wound up dropping to UU in Gens 5 and 6, which surprised me because I thought it just dipped off the face of the earth, which it promptly did in Gen 7 and 8. Even with the ability to set up Stealth Rocks and remove the enemies while being Spikes immune, a lack of reliable recovery and a weakness to U-Turn followed by Flip Turn just made this Pokemon so easy to play around. Once a Titan, and now it hangs around the likes of Aromatisse, Eldegoss, and Ferroseed? Okay, so to be fair, Misdreavus technically did have a career and did fall off. The reasons why, however, are incredibly self-explanatory, so I thought it would be more interesting to talk about why something with its stat line was ever good in the first place. Mostly, it was a surprisingly solid alternative to Gengar due to being less vulnerable to Psychic and Earthquake. Because of this, it had an easier time spin blocking Starmie, and walled most setbacks in Generation 2. Typically, it used like a Perish Trap set or some Toxic and Pain Split stuff. But hey, it sees play, which is something unexpected. In Gen 3 UU, where it's tiered, it's really only known for hitting like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's what I remember it doing anyways. But hey, that's a pretty good idea. You all should be like Misdreavus. In Gen 3 OU, I can tell you that in OU, it's another Gengar alternative. You know that Psychic thing I was talking about? Yet again, unlike Gengar, it can come in on it. This is outright forced Pokemon that would normally run Psychic to run Shadow Ball just for it. Hilariously, with Psychic, it also 1v1s Gengar, because Gengar doesn't run Shadow Ball in Gen 3 because it's physical, which I find pretty hilarious. It'll typically use like Perish Trap or like Toxic, Thunder Wave, and Pain Split as ways to be really annoying. Thunderbolt and Hidden Power Ice were also good on it, to hit mons like Salamence and Starmie. That's right, it had real ass usage. And then Gen 4 happened. Mismagius was introduced, and we never heard from Misdreavus again. And then, even if Mismagius wasn't introduced, Pursuit became physical, and Shadow Ball became special, which meant that Tyranitar and Gengar just super bullied it. And they also just bullied Mismagius. A lot of things bullied Mismagius. And even though Mismagius is tied at being one of my favorite Pokemon, it's still bad. This entire line is carried by a prehistoric pixie version of itself, which makes me wonder how ghosts became prehistoric to begin with. Actually, I don't like questioning the logic behind Fluttermane. Snorlax is a Pokemon whose descent into lower and lower tiers is something that is admittedly expected, but still tragic nonetheless. It was great in the first 3 generations of Pokemon, and then Gen 4 happened, and Fighting Stab got a significant increase in power because people were suddenly getting very close when engaging in combat. Snorlax became a slow heavy in a world full of fast, combo-centric rushdown characters. You knew it was over when he started hanging around Smash Bros. Ganondorf. Well, it is tiered OU in Gen 4, but by technicality, no one actually uses it there. And then Gen 5 dropped Terrakion, and Gen 6 dropped Megas, and then Gen 7 dropped Z-Move, which Snorlax, despite having one, was bad at using. You would think that maybe they would give it Slack Off or Regenerator as a means of helping it better stand against these threats in the way that they willingly give Toxapex everything it could ever ask for. But it wasn't meant to be. From OU in 4 gens, UU in 2 of them, and then suddenly NU in 8. And then all the way down the ZU in Gen 9 because Snorlax isn't a real big Terra Pokemon. For context, Gen 9 ZU is the same tier with Rotom Frost and Base Sneasel in it. And I'm pretty sure Base Sneasel is better at the moment. Not sure though. Once was a king, and now he lives on the streets. Regice's falloff just feels like it makes sense. It was good enough to at least be an OU in Gen 3, and then after that, it just stopped. It was NU by the next generation, and it really got worse from there. So, what happened to it? Well, I'm not even gonna say what happened after Gen 5 because it isn't necessary. What happened to it was that not only were Stealth Rocks introduced, but also the move Close Combat was introduced. And then Jirachi got Iron Head, Heatran and Lucario got to exist, and in return for all its strife, Regice got nothing that would let it combat these threats in any way. The physical special split was also implemented, which meant that fire moves, which it could originally tank, got to become physical. And then add Flare Blitz onto that, and yeah, quite literally what happened within the span of Gens 3 to 4 is that so many better things got introduced. It didn't help that Tyranitar got even better, which made Regice even harder to use. And don't even get me started on Scizor Bullet Punch. You know what it could have used? Everything ever to buff it, which it got none of. Surely one day we can have like Mega Regice, which are secretly very good, and I don't know. I know I'd use Mega Regice, or even like Mega Regidrago. Actually, Dragon Energy, but even stronger, sounds fun as hell. They should let me design Pokemon for Game Freak. Source? Trust. The first thing I'd do, I would give Snorlax Slack Off, and I'd give Kingdra Water Spout. I promise you, I can be trusted. This falloff is probably one of the most drastic. Let me explain. Breloom was actually amazing in Gens 3 to 6. That's right. Breloom, of all Pokemon, managed to keep up and eke out usage in a world where Heatran and Jirachi were mods. It managed to keep its footing in a world with permanent weather, multi-scale Dragonite, and Psychic Sand. It managed to be on the same viability rankings as the damn Mega Charizards, and in Gen 7, when it did leave OU, it was too good for the UU below. Its banded Technician Mach Punches, access to Spore, and its silly Poison Hill Leech Seed substrats were all good enough to warrant usage, despite its seemingly low stats outside of its attack. Its tools were good enough to keep it in contention, and then Terra happened to it. A once OU staple and UUBL lifer dropped to NU in Generation 9 within not much time at all. Even though it stood strong in the face of Megas, it couldn't keep up with the obscene power of Booster Energy Paradoxes, Goldango, and Cinderace. And it didn't help that there were just better Pokemon to use now like Rillaboom and Sinistcha. Heck, even Chestnut started outclassing it. The efficiency of breakers in powerful Pokemon increased with Terra, while nothing Breloom could Terra into would save it from getting dunked on in every high-level match. It's actually pretty tragic. One day though, maybe it can return to its former glory. We just need to move on to Gen 10, where there will be no Walking Wake or Iron Valiant. And that's that. Even more Mons who fell off. How would I recommend making them better? Well, we can't. We need to remove the Pokemon that made them worse instead. It's perfect. Trust. With that said, how would you fix these Pokemon so maybe one day they can climb back up? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below.